Do you have trouble falling asleep? Anticipatory anxiety sends a signal of danger to your nervous system, and it triggers your fight or flight response. Welcome back, friends. Do you have trouble falling asleep when you're worried about something, or wake up feeling dread about an upcoming event, like a meeting at work, taking an exam, doctor's appointment, maybe a social event? Most of us have those experiences due to something called anticipatory anxiety. Today I'm going to review anticipatory anxiety, including what it is, how it progresses, and be sure to catch the 7 tips to help you cope with it near the end. Now, anticipatory anxiety begins by worrying and imagining something bad happening in the future. It's what we do as humans. We're wired to anticipate danger so that we can be prepared. Now, anticipatory anxiety comes from an overly active imagination or conditioned reactions to past experiences, or both. And it can be prompted by anxiety sensitivity, the fear of how anxiety symptoms feel in the body, and the misinterpretation that they're harmful or dangerous. But sometimes anticipatory anxiety can spiral out of control, especially when you believe that you have to manage the situation or the anxiety. When you are experiencing anticipatory anxiety, you might notice symptoms like feeling on edge, restless, maybe keyed up, having trouble concentrating, or feeling like you have brain fog. Maybe you're feeling irritable, feeling exhausted, feeling muscle tension, having sleep difficulties. Maybe expecting or imagining a bad outcome, so you're worrying, feeling nervous and apprehensive. Maybe having negative, irrational thoughts that come in the form of, what if this happens? What if they don't like me? What if I get fired? What if I embarrass myself? What if I'm a bad person? What if I can't get to sleep? What if I have a terminal illness? What if I just snap and lose control? What if I make a mistake? What if I never feel better? Anticipatory anxiety sends a signal of danger to your nervous system, and it triggers your fight or flight response. Now, to explain it further, Sally Winston and Martin Seif, in their book called Overcoming Anticipatory Anxiety, break down anticipatory anxiety into 3 levels. Level 1 is you fear something. At its core, anticipatory anxiety begins with a fear of a specific object, situation, or event, whether it's public speaking, flying, being alone, feeling a heart palpitation, a fear of throwing up, not getting to sleep, feeling embarrassed. There's something that you fear that triggers an impending sense of doom or dread. And that first step is acknowledging this fear and understanding that it's a natural response. Level 2 is developing a fear of fear itself. The fear of fear is the fear of how anxiety feels in your body. So you may worry that the initial anxiety is going to escalate into a panic attack or loss of control, and recognize that this fear is a projection, an overestimate of a risk. Remind yourself that anxiety is just a temporary state, and panic attacks, although they're very uncomfortable, they're manageable, they're not harmful or dangerous. People are at risk of developing panic disorder if they misjudge their bodily sensations to be dangerous. And level 3 is the fear of being afraid of being afraid. Now, this level is where anticipatory anxiety gains power by adding catastrophizing projections and worries, persuading you to avoid the experience altogether. Now, this sounds complex, but it makes sense when you hear an example. So, level 1. Beth fears social events because she fears she might embarrass herself, or maybe she's going to be judged negatively. Level 2. She gets so worked up about social events that Beth fears it's going to cause her to have a panic attack. Level 3, Beth is so miserable thinking about the upcoming social event with her coworkers, she imagines having a panic attack or embarrassing herself, so Beth decides to avoid the event altogether. You can see in level 3 her misery and negative predictions cause her to avoid the event altogether, which further reinforces her anxiety. Catastrophic imagined predictions drive us to avoid situations, and that avoidance only perpetuates and feeds our fear. Trying to manage or control your anxiety by avoiding situations is like feeding a hungry tiger. The more you feed it, the bigger and more aggressive it becomes, and the more food it demands. And the more you avoid discomfort, the larger the anxiety tiger grows. And unfortunately, the smaller your world becomes. Unfortunately, anticipatory anxiety can spiral out of control, and it can progress into conditions like GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, social anxiety, sleep anxiety, insomnia, phobias, OCD, panic disorder, agoraphobia, health anxiety, and more. Now, in scenarios where there's concern about experiencing a panic attack, anticipatory anxiety might manifest hours or days or even weeks ahead of a scheduled event. It can lead to a cause of chronic hyperventilation, which can trigger a panic attack. And symptoms like headaches, persistent gastrointestinal problems like diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting can also be traced back to anticipatory anxiety. And health anxiety OCD is another anticipatory anxiety-related condition where a person fears that there may have something very wrong with them, and that anticipatory worry culminates in compulsions like seeking reassurance by monitoring their symptoms, Googling, seeking a doctor, medical testing, all to squelch that concern and urgency. So you can see anticipatory anxiety in almost every phobia. Take agoraphobia. The fear of leaving one's safe place can prompt excessive worry about having a panic symptom or being unable to escape or cope or endure a feared situation. So anticipatory anxiety encompasses not just discomfort, but a drive and a compulsion to escape or avoid not only the anxiety and the panic, but also feelings like disgust, shame, anger, remorse, humiliation, feeling overwhelmed, or any other undesired emotion. One way to think about anticipatory anxiety is a fear of being unable to cope with emotional and physical discomfort. Emotions are transient, harmless experiences. And if I say I want you to be joyful for the next 10 minutes, you'd say, Paige, I can't make myself joyful. I might be able to bring up a joyful memory for a few moments, but I can't, maintain a joyful feeling. Well, the same goes for any other emotional experience. We feel all different kinds of emotions, yet those of us with anxiety disorders, phobias, and OCD, we seem to want to choose what we want to feel and avoid the ones that we don't like. So what would happen if you changed the way you think about emotions? Instead of avoiding negative emotional experiences, you just allow whatever shows up to run its course without trying to avoid it or control it. In other words, you no longer feel threatened by emotional experiences. Here are 7 ways that will help you to cope with your anticipatory anxiety. Number 1, change your view of anticipatory anxiety. Anxiety means you care about something. You might care about your health, safety, comfort, your reputation, acceptance, etc. It doesn't mean that you should avoid a situation to avoid anxiety symptoms. Anxiety is kind of like a nagging friend telling you what's important to you. This is often a signal of what you need to work on in your life, what you need to step towards. Anxiety is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Number 2, allow the anxiety sensations to be there. Oh, I'm feeling on edge. I'm kind of stressed today. That's anticipatory anxiety. That means I care. I'm just going to allow whatever shows up to be there. I'm going to move towards my fear, not avoid it. Number 3, exercise. Going for a walk or practicing yoga or other forms of exercise and stress management are great for anticipatory anxiety. Now, normally I advise people to not do anything in the moment of high anxiety, but anticipatory anxiety can be on a slow burn that can last for days and weeks, and scheduled stress management practices, including exercise, are just a great way to manage that excess adrenaline and cortisol buildup. Number 4, manage your self-talk about whatever you are anticipating. If you complain about it and you choose negative descriptions, it's only going to increase your anxiety and further trigger your fight or flight. Saying things like, I can manage whatever symptoms or emotions come up, or this gives me a great opportunity to practice tolerating my discomfort, that's going to be more motivating and encouraging. Number 5, remind yourself to let go of expectations of perfection. Sometimes we can create our own anticipatory anxiety because we expect perfection out of ourselves. We are imperfect beings. Expecting perfection from yourself adds considerably to anticipatory anxiety. In fact, studies on academic performance, as an example, demonstrate that performance actually improves when expectations decrease. Number 6, interpret anxiety bodily sensations as normal, uncomfortable, but not harmful or dangerous. Your level of anxiety symptoms always comes down to how you're interpreting what you're feeling. Number 7, if you value the situation or the event causing the anxiety, follow the value. Move towards it regardless of your anxiety. For example, if you have a dentist appointment coming up and you value caring for your health and your teeth, follow your value. Go to the dentist. Let anxiety do whatever it decides to do. Anticipatory anxiety is part of being human. We can learn to think of it as a normal response when something is important to us, when we want to allow it. Moving towards the fear allows us to build up our confidence, while avoiding it reinforces our fear and vulnerability. Don't shortchange yourself. Be an anxiety seeker. Believe in your ability to tolerate the anxiety symptoms and step towards your fear. Until next time, I'll see you in session. Take care. Bye-bye.